Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a journey back right to the aftermath of World War I. But really, we're looking straight into the future.
We are.
Our mission today is to unpack the foundational and, frankly, terrifying blueprint for modern warfare. We're talking about the military theory of air power, laid out by the Italian aviator Giulio Douhet in his seminal 1921 book, The Command of the Air.
And this wasn't just some theory collecting dust on a shelf. Douhet was, you could almost say, a military prophet. He saw what the airplane meant better than almost anyone in the 1920s.
Right.
And his thinking, which was just so radical, it had a huge impact, especially here in the U.S. I mean, a translation was already circulating at the Air Service Tactical School almost immediately.
So it was shaping doctrine from the very beginning.
It absolutely was, setting the groundwork for everything that came later with strategic bombing.
And the reason he cut through all that noise was his central thesis.
Yeah.
It's the core idea for this whole deep dive.
That achieving command of the air is the necessary and sufficient condition for victory.
Necessary and sufficient. I love that phrasing. It means if you control the sky, nothing else matters.
And if you don't, everything else you do is basically pointless.
To really get how radical that was, you have to remember what 1918 looked like.
Oh, absolutely. World War I was this gruesome, grinding stalemate. It was all about the defensive.
The machine gun, the trenches.
The artillery, yeah. All of it combined to create these static, continuous fronts. Every single advance was measured in yards and cost thousands of lives. It was just a bloody, slow grind.
And Douhet looks at this stalemate, and he basically says the airplane is the only way out.
Exactly. He realizes that air power, especially when you couple it with, new weapons like high explosives, incendiaries, and poison gas, it completely flips the dynamic.
It flips it how?
It favors the offensive. And crucially, it invalidates the surface barrier.
Okay, so when you say invalidates the surface barrier, help us visualize that. What's suddenly irrelevant?
It means the machine gun nests, the concrete bunkers, miles of razor wire.
All that stuff that defined World War I.
All of it. It's suddenly useless if the attack is coming straight down from the ceiling. Douhet understood that the battleground wasn't the trenches anymore. It was everywhere.
Which means future wars would be, as he put it, total in character and scope.
Total. And that's where his logic gets really brutal and, kind of unavoidable.
Because if the battlefield is everywhere, then what good is an army or a navy?
Exactly. They can't protect you. Douhet's chilling conclusion was that even the strongest armies, the biggest fleets, the traditional shields of a nation, they can't provide any real defense against an enemy determined to bomb your heartland.
The army is stuck at the front line, but the enemy is just flying right over them.
Uncontested.
So if you can't hit the army effectively, where do you aim? This is where he makes a huge shift.
A total shift. The primary target is no longer the hardened military force. It's what he calls the lifeblood of the nation.
Which means?
Large, vulnerable, easy-to-hit objectives. He was incredibly specific about this. He wasn't talking about bombing forts. He meant industrial plants, huge warehouses, railroad centers.
And population centers.
Yes, major population centers. Those were the true targets for him.
And the goal wasn't just wrecking a factory, was it? It was psychological.
100%. The material destruction was just a means to an end. The real goal was psychological collapse.
Breaking the national will.
Precisely. If you could convince the civilians that resistance was impossible, that destruction was inevitable, you could win the war instantly. Civilian morale becomes a primary military objective.
Which brings us to, I think, the darkest part of his doctrine. The weapons themselves.
Yeah. If the goal is breaking the will, the means have to be overwhelming. He was a true realist, or maybe a nihilist about this. He was explicit.
He said future attacks should use what?
A combination. Explosive, incendiary, and depoison gas bombs. He called it the aerochemical arm.
But wait, poison gas had already been condemned after World War I. How did he justify using it on cities?
Purely practical strategy. It was all about maximizing terror and damage. He imagined you would saturate a target with poison gas first.
Why first?
To prevent any counteraction. He literally said the gas would stop firefighters and rescue workers from even getting close to the fires caused by the incendiaries.
Wow, so it's about compounding the shock.
Compounding the shock and ensuring total destruction.
Did he even try to address the moral conventions around war?
He just dismissed them, flat out. He said in a life and death struggle, all international conventions are swept away like dried leaves.
So war is just war.
For him, it meant fighting with whatever was most effective. The words humane or inhumane just didn't apply. His logic was, if a quick, brutal attack shortens the war, then it's the necessary path.
Okay, so Douhet lays out the goal breaking the nation's will with the most brutal means. But how do you build a military to actually do that? That brings us to the Independent Air Force, the IAF.
Yes. And this was a huge break from tradition. At the time, air units were just, auxiliary arms. They did reconnaissance for the army, spotted for artillery.
Little tactical jobs.
Right. Douhet argued passionately against that. He insisted aviation had to be its own unified strategic branch, completely independent of the Army or the Navy.
And why was that independence so critical for him?
Because the IAF had one job, a single goal, to fight for and conquer the command of the air. If you put air units under an Army general, they'll get pulled into helping with ground missions.
A distraction.
A total distraction from the strategic bombing mission. For Douhet, any plane not actively going for air dominance was being wasted.
And this unified offensive mission, it leads right to the second pillar of his thinking, the absolute rejection of aerial defense.
He saw it as a complete waste of resources. He said the airplane is, and I'm quoting here, preeminently an offensive weapon. Using it for defense was, to him, just illogical. Absurd.
And he didn't just argue it philosophically, did he? He made a pretty brutal economic case against it.
He did. Lay it out for us.
Well, imagine you're trying to protect a country. The enemy can attack any one of 100 cities. You would have to have enough planes to guard all 100 of those cities at the same time.
While the attacker only needs to concentrate all their forces on one point.
Right. So the defender has to be strong everywhere, while the attacker only needs to be strong somewhere. It's economically impossible, an unsustainable scenario.
And that's where his famous mad dog analogy comes in, isn't it?
It is. He said trying to defend every city is like trying to guard every single doorstep in a town from one mad dog.
It's futile, reactive.
The logical thing to do is to get a group together and go hunt the dog down in its lair.
So his conclusion is stark. The only viable defense is a concentrated offense.
Exactly. You have to just resign yourself to taking the first punch so that you can deliver an even heavier one back. It's a race to see who could deliver the most devastating counterblow the fastest.
You meet fire with overwhelming focused fire.
What's so fascinating to me is how far ahead he was, not just strategically, but, on the technical side. He was predicting engineering needs.
He was a true visionary. He imagined bombers carrying these massive payloads, like 10 or more tons, way more destructive power than a battleship's broadside.
And he did the math. He actually calculated the makeup of a bombing unit.
He did. 10 planes with 2 tons of bombs each could destroy a surface area of 500 meters in diameter. He was thinking in very practical terms.
And he also saw how a country like his, Italy, which maybe didn't have the industrial base of Germany or the U.S., could still compete.
That's a key insight. He said the IAF shouldn't just rely on super specialized military planes that are slow to build.
Instead,
you use planes of moderate characteristics, and you design your civilian aircraft-like transport planes to be quickly converted into bombers in wartime. He saw civil aviation as a vital military reserve.
So pragmatic.
Hugely pragmatic. And he even predicted the physical problems of high-altitude flight. He knew that for speed and efficiency, planes would have to fly higher, and that would mean you'd need
Pressurized cabins.
Pressurized cabins. Decades before that became standard. He connected the grand strategy right down to the nuts and bolts of engineering.
Okay, so to bring this whole chilling mathematical theory to life, Douhet wrote a hypothetical scenario. It's called the War of 19 Check.
Yes, a conflict between France and Belgium on one side and Germany on the other.
So let's walk through it. How did he predict his doctrine would play out?
Well, the contrast he sets up is just perfect. France and Belgium, the Allies, they're prepared for the last war, World War I.
A war of movement on the ground.
Exactly. And their air power is totally fragmented. It's all auxiliary units spread across 60 different types of planes for 14 different specialties. It's a mess.
Decentralized.
Completely. Meanwhile, Germany is the pure Douhetist state. They're constrained by in the air.
Their whole plan is built on the aerochemical arm and a single, massive, centralized, independent air force.
A pure Douhetian force.
The war starts on June 16th. What's the opening move?
It's an overwhelming, concentrated shock, a massive formation of 1,500 battle planes, all flying in these rigid parallel columns.
And their target isn't the front line.
Of course not. It's deep psychological and structural targets, communications rail lines, road hubs to cut off the Allied operational zone and cause maximum civilian panic.
And this is all preceded by a really cynical legal move, right?
Oh, yeah. Before a single bomb drops, Germany sends a telegram at 2 a.m., a formal warning.
Saying what?
Saying they will bomb any centers where mobilization is happening. It's the official justification for using chemical weapons on cities. By declaring any mobilization center a target, well...
every major city becomes a legitimate target.
Exactly.
So what's the effect of this shock on the unprepared Allies?
Their pursuit units are just overwhelmed. Instantly. Douhet describes the rigid German formations just grinding through any fragmented resistance.
And by the end of day one,
the Allied command feels a crushing sense of inferiority in the air. The war on the ground hasn't even really started, but in their minds, it's already lost.
the end comes so fast. It's not an invasion, it's an ultimatum.
Correct. Germany delivers the hammer blow, an ultimatum demanding the evacuation of 4 key cities. If they refuse, the cities will be completely destroyed.
And that single action proves his whole point.
It does, because the Allied reaction confirms it. The order to evacuate makes them feel, and this is a quote, definitely that they had been defeated in the air and that they were hopelessly at the enemy's mercy.
The war was decided in the air, instantly. The army never had to be beaten. The nation's will was just broken from above.
That was the theory in action.
So, to sort of wrap up this deep dive into the world, according to Douhet, his unwavering belief was that the nation that organizes its air force this way, rationally, offensively, gains an inestimable advantage.
And we shouldn't forget, this wasn't just theory for theory's sake. For him, it was a practical roadmap for his own country, for Italy. Given Italy's vulnerable geography, with all its industry concentrated and easy to reach from the sea, this doctrine of rapid, overwhelming air power was the only way he saw for Italy to survive.
His legacy is obviously immense. It shaped the thinking of people like Billy Mitchell, the architects of strategic bombing in World War II. But his logic leaves us with a really provocative final thought. He wrote that if a victorious nation can't make immediate use of its aerial victory, the war just drags on like World War I.
And if you accept his premise that the true objective of war is the enemy's will, not just their army, it raises a question that's still incredibly relevant today.
Which is?
What preparation beyond just building more planes is actually required to protect the national will from that kind of overwhelming, instantaneous shock? His lesson wasn't just about bombs.
No. His final chilling point remains. The aerial struggle will be decided instantly by the best prepared and the swiftest acting forces. And that leaves you wondering, can any modern society really prepare its collective psyche for an instantaneous, total collapse of its protective barriers?
That instantaneous decision, that's the key insight to keep mulling over. An essential, if dark, concept for us to leave you with.
Thank you for joining the deep dive.